Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Winthrop Town Council meeting for Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025. It is 6:30 PM. We're in the Harvey Hearing Room. Roll call, please.
Counsel Aiello.
Here.
Counsel DeMarco.
Here.
Counsel Gostigan.
Here.
Counsel Tassinari.
Here.
Counsel Swope. Here. Counsel DeRoss.
Here.
Vice President Belcher.
Here.
President Lettieri.
Here. Quorum is present. Please stand for the pledge, led by Councilor Swope.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have minutes circulated from July 1st meeting. Any motion to approve? Motion by Councilor Swope, second by Councilor DeRoss. Any discussions on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Public hearing. I'm going to open a public hearing for the Ordinance Review Committee recommendations on the town charter. Just go into these in a minute. This will not be voted on this evening. We'll have brief comments through the public hearing period. We will then have this on the agenda again at the August 12th meeting, and it will be voted on then, each of the ordinances, each of the charter change recommendations. What I will say, and I'll open this up by saying that the OSC does an incredible job. The members comprise a bunch of experienced group of individuals representing various sectors of the community. The chair, Karen Chavez, clerk, Carol Meach, Hannah Belcher from the council, Caitlin Burrows, Tim Callahan, Vinnie Crossman, Kurt Millar, Shannon Poolhouse, and Denise Quist. They had meetings constantly over the last several months, and this is only really part one of their duties, is to look at the charter. Part two will be much more intense, much more labor-focused, and it will be looking at all the ordinances. The town attorney will lead that segment of this, of their mission for this part. So over the past several months, they've met. They began April 2nd. They went through June 24th was their last meeting. They held 11 meetings. All the meetings were posted. They were all public meetings. All the agendas were announced. The primary focus of the Ordinance Review Committee was to formulate charter change recommendations for inclusion on the biannual election ballot scheduled for November 4th. Registered voters will have the opportunity to vote on these proposals if they come out of the council with a positive recommendation. A brief synopsis of the ORC's recommendation for the ballot is provided, which we'll go into detail with. All proposals have been reviewed by the town attorney and are submitted to the town council. And I'll just go into, there's not several, but there's a good amount of these proposed changes. And I will say that the one that's got the most talking about, I guess, the most discussion in town, has been a recommendation that's come up before several ORCs, and I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit tonight and much more in the August 12th meeting, is the idea of changing the composition of the council, right? Right now, we have a council president, we have 2 at-large councilors and 6 precinct councilors, and we've had that form since 2005. Over the last 3 ORCs, they've had discussion on whether to change that. This time, it did come out with a recommendation, which we'll read, which will be potentially changing from, the council president would stay the same. Instead of 2 at-large and 6 precincts, the recommendation would be to go to 6 at-large. We'll get into the reasons for that and everything else. I just want to talk a second about how that would potentially work. A past council president, Tom Riley, the first council president, and incredibly studious in regards to everything that's municipal government related. He's talked to me several times about this and had questions about, not about the plan, not about the thought, just about the legality of can we do it, how we can do it, what it would take to do it. So after much talk with Attorney Cipolletta, town managers weighed in. What we have as of now, and this is all in Mass General Law, Section 43B. It goes from Section 2 to Section 10 of 43B. So, just a brief synopsis, the charter can be changed under 43B. 43B is the Home Rule statute, and our charter is a Home Rule charter. When there is a petition, or in this case, a proposal for an amendment to the charter that deals with the number, composition, or manner of election of the legislative body, the council must order an election of a charter commission consisting of 9 members townwide. The Charter Commission shall hold a public hearing on the matter within 45 days of election. Make a report to the council within 16 months of that election, and then the council would vote within 18 months of that same said election, and a 2/3 vote's required at the council. So this is what's come back to me. This even lends to more questions, right? So this is saying that if the council moved to go forward with the proposed recommendation, what the council would be doing by doing that would be to add another election on the ballot question in November. That election would be for 9 charter commissioners. What I don't know is a counselor eligible for a charter commission, is a police officer, is a town employee. So there were questions within that question. However, once there is a charter commission selected by the town, that charter commission would then start. It's up to 16 months, it could take a month. My question there is, they're only discussing that one proposed amendment, which is going from 2 at large and 6 precincts to 6 at large. So that would be their mission, that would be what they're charged to do. They would then come back, I'm assuming by this, saying, yes, we agree with this for these following reasons. Then this is saying the council will then vote, and it would take a supermajority, 2/3, so 6 votes, no matter how many councilors are present at that meeting. It would take 6 votes to pass it. Now, that's all this says. Now, to me, my next question was, once the council passes it, does it go back to the voters to vote on it? I'm being told no. So there's still several questions that we have to ask and get answered before, but I guess the main question that could be answered now is it can be done. It's a process. It would take roughly a year and a half to fully execute it. So I just wanted to, before a lot of public comment about that specific one, if and when we have that, just want to give a quick thought. So the proposed amendments are proposed amendment composition of the council. Town council is composed of 6 precinct councilors, 2 at-large councilors. The proposed amendment, they would amend Section 2(1)A to change the composition of the town council from 6 precinct councilors and 2 at-large councilors to 6 at-large councilors, with 3 elected at each biannual election for 4-year staggered terms. The rationale was that roughly over the last 20 years, close to 70% of precinct councilors have run unopposed, suggesting a lack of contested races and potentially limiting your voter choice. By transitioning to all-at-large councilors with staggered term, the ORC believes this will provide all voters with the opportunity to vote for all council seats over time, foster town-wide representation and accountability, reduce barriers to candidacies that may exist under precinct-based systems, encourage more residents to run for office by removing geographic restrictions. So that's what they came out of their meetings, that's their proposal. So the easiest way to explain it is it would turn into something similar, not something similar, to exactly the way the school committee is done. There are 6 at-large members of the school committee. Over the past many years, very rarely are there 3 people running for 3 spots. The other thing that they talked about that this encourages is this encourages more equity in terms of you don't necessarily have to win the race. You just have to come in the top 3 to become a councilor. So that was one of their amendments. The second one is more of clarification of the writing of it, is the abandonment of office. The proposed amendment would replace the existing provision with a clearly defined 5-step procedure to be followed when a council member is considered to have abandoned their office. This new process ensures that any detrimentation is handled fairly, transparently, and with appropriate due process protection for the councilors. The Ordinance Review Committee's collaboration with the town council, legal counsel has drafted this version to ensure due process for elected officials, create a clear and consistent procedure, protect both the rights of the councilor and the integrity of the office, and avoid ambiguity and potential misuse of the abandonment clause. The proposed five-step procedure defines how concerns are raised, reviewed, and acted upon, including the opportunities for the councilors to respond and appeal. And that was passed 8-0. The first one was 7-2 in favor. Council Vice President, the amendment, it would be to amend the current process in which the council elects the vice president from among its members. Under the proposed change, the council president would nominate a vice president from the membership to serve a 2-year term, subject to the confirmation of a majority vote of the council. This would streamline the appointment process, and it would clarify roles and timelines for vice presidential service. That was an 8-0 vote. Compensation and expenses. It's not changing the compensation of the councilors, it's changing the way it can be changed in the future. It was something in the charter that was very ambiguous and very difficult to understand, and if it was ever considered, would take roughly 4 years or longer to be enacted. So the proposed amendment would require that the town council to review and vote on compensation adjustments every 2 years prior to June 30th. Any proposed increase must be placed on a ballot at the next scheduled biannual election for approval or rejection by the voters. This would ensure regular review of council compensation. It would increase transparency and voter oversight and address an issue the ORC believes is long overdue. This was also an 8-0 vote. Exercising of powers, quorums, and rules amended. Current rule regulation for town council delivering for calling a special meeting. Right now, the town clerk has to literally deliver a special meeting to each individual councilor in person to their house. Now, the change would be that these notices, these deliveries do not have to be hand-delivered to the committee board members. They can be done electronically or in other manner, but they don't have to be hand-delivered. Again, the ORC extends its sincere appreciation to Councilor Jim Cipolletta for his invaluable guidance, expertise, and support throughout this review process. We also, Councilor Swope was there constantly, Council President Lettieri was there for their consistent presence at all of ORC meetings and for their thoughtful advice. Your contributions were instrumental in providing the committee complete its work thoroughly and effectively. And again, a lot of the committee members are here, and I would like to thank them because they're the ones that did all the work. And this was submitted by Karen Chavez, the chair, Clerk Carol Meach, Hannah Belcher, Caitlin Burrows, Timothy Callahan, Vinnie Crossman, Kurt Millar, Shannon Poolhouse, and Denise Quist. So, abandonment term of office, council president, compensation expenses. Those, exercise of powers, what else do we have? These are changes also, right?
These are all, this is just
the other ones. I'm going to open, again, this public hearing up. Anybody from the public that would like to speak in favor of any of the, usually on a public forum, you're going to speak in favor, and then you're going to speak in opposition. Where there's multiple items here, if anyone who cares to speak on any of the items listed right now, please feel more than free to do so. Karen Chavez.
Karen Chavez, Precinct 2. I'm kind of disappointed about the composition and what we just found out today, basically, that we just couldn't go ahead. I want everybody to know that this was a much thought-out thing. We didn't just decide, oh, well, let's not have any more precinct councilors. We talked about it at length. We talked about the difference between the precinct counselor and the at-large counselor. We looked at the school committee and to see how diverse they were. If you look at the school committee, they're not all from one precinct, they're from almost every precinct is represented. We looked at municipalities, cities, towns that had 1,000 or 1,000 more or 1,000 less in population. Unfortunately, or fortunately, those towns still have selectmen, they still have town meeting, they do have town managers. We do not fit into those categories. So we weren't able to use, what did they have, councils at large or councils for precinct? We couldn't do it because it wasn't there. I won't go any further on this. I just want you to know we spent a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of searching, a lot of phone calls, a lot of being in contact with other cities and towns. And we got a lot of information back before we made that decision. As far as the other changes we made, again, they were all made with lots of thought, lots of input, and input from outside, input from Attorney Cipolletta, input from Council Swope, and input from the town council president.
Any other comments on the public? Yeah, yes.
Erin Barcelos, Precinct 5. And I do want to just amend the ordinance committee for all the suggestions that they have here. Because I've gone to a few of their meetings and they have put a lot of work into it. And it's great going to any of those meetings because there's a lot of great conversations. So I appreciate you guys all. And I am fully against the composition, the change in the setup of the town council. I think that with what Karen just said, there's not enough research because it's hard to match another town to this town, right? And one of the biggest things that I heard in those meetings is that there's not enough community participation. So people aren't stepping up to run for offices, right? That's not gonna change with the setup. That's gonna change with us all bringing more people in to community government. So if there's not a plan for that, then how can we support a plan for the change, the compensation? That's all.
Thank you. Jack? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anonymous, Precinct 1. I think it's a great idea because we're going to eliminate the man on this end of the bench and the man on the end of the bench, if in fact they make it that long. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. Tom?
Yeah, on the area, Precinct 3, I'm wondering in our research on this, do town councilors get queries specifically from members of their precinct? I'm in Precinct 3, I call my Precinct 3 councilor. Is that the way people are working, or do they just call at random? So will people be more or less inclined to call a specific counselor for a specific reason that has to do with something in their precinct? I just want to urge that as part of the research into this.
Thank you. Yes, Lee?
Lee Foley, Precinct 6. First, I want to ask if the rule is that there are no personal attacks against people, counselors?
There's no personal names used.
Okay, or pointing, all right, okay. I guess one of my questions, I made this in the beginning, was why reduce to 6 and why not keep 9 counselors?
It wouldn't be 6 and 9, it's 8 and 9, right? The council president would stay the same, so that's
Okay.
number 9. So it would be reducing from 8 to 6.
Okay, so what's the point of the reduction? So the total councils would be 6?
7. Total council would be
So it
7.
would be reduced by 2.
Yes.
So what's the point of this? Is it possible to keep?
I think their thought process, and they could talk about it, but their thought process was looking at the number of uncontested elections over the last 20 years. And there's a large amount of uncontested elections. And if you look, it would basically become 6 councilors and a council president, like the school committee has 6 school committee, and the council president sits on that. So every, looking at past elections as they did, if you look at school committee races, for example, this year, there's 3 positions up, as there always are. There are 3 incumbents that have not, to date anyway, pulled papers, yet there were 7 people that have pulled papers for those 3 seats. So very often, I think it's 85%, there were contested races on the school committee side. Now, could be a totally different committee, and that could be the reason, but it would basically go to that same thing. There would be 3 open seats every 2 years for the councilors. So the thought, again, would be if you're running for the school committee, you don't necessarily, a lot of talk is, oh, it's the most popular person, the person that everybody likes. It's not sometimes the most qualified, whatever, you don't know. Now, the thought, again, would be you're opening this up for a lot of people because you don't have to come in first. You don't even have to come in second, you only have to come in third. So it's given, potentially more openings for people to get involved. And if you're in precinct 3 and you want to run for council, but your seat isn't up this time, now you have to wait 2 years or one for that one at large. So I think that was the thought. It wasn't, I don't think the thought was necessarily reducing the number. Reducing the number, so right now, every 2 years, there were 5 council positions up. Right, there's 3 precinct, 1 at large, and a council president. Now that would go to 4. So, and it would be 4 townwide instead of, it would be 3 townwide, right? And then the council president. So 3 townwide races instead of 4 with 3 precinct and 1 at large. So it gives more opportunities, I guess. That's the thought process.
I was just thinking that more people might want to run because they don't have the barrier of not being from the precinct that is opening. I don't know.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking more people might run because there isn't the barrier of having the precinct.
Yes,
So-
that was the thought process. But, and you could look at, one of the contentions that was talked about was, there's going to be 6 councilors from precinct 2 or 5 or whatever it happens to be. And if you look at the school committee, and it could be a sheer coincidence, but every precinct is represented within the school committee. I don't think it would be like that every year, but I think the thought is you'd have more contested races. The other way to handle this, the thought was to get more contested. That's the goal, was to go to 2-year, the other suggestion that was brought up and talked about was to go to all 2-year terms, right? Because 4 years is a big commitment. A lot of people have very busy lives now. There's a lot of stuff going on. Maybe a 2-year commitment would be much more enticing than a 4-year commitment. So maybe that would be something to do instead. The con, I guess, with the 2-year is potentially you're turning over the whole council every 2 years. Maybe a lot of people would think that's a good thing. I don't know. But, that's the flaw maybe with that.
And I guess one more thing I wanted to say was I just want to echo Aaron's sentiment about understanding more about why people aren't engaging and trying to find out how they will engage and what can be done to adapt to them to have more inclusive council.
Yeah, it is, and looking at the school committee this year, I believe, and it's either 6 or 7 have pulled papers, and I don't believe any of them have ever run for public office before.
Right.
And I think even on the council side, people that have pulled, and again, not necessarily put papers back in, but people that have pulled papers vastly outweigh people that haven't run for a position before. Mr. Senate.
Mark Senate, Precinct 2. With the proposed changes from 9 to 7, I'm just wondering how that's going to affect voting on controversial issues where the town is kind of split on them and things like that. How would that work? What would be the majority or the supermajority that would you need for issues to be passed?
It would be 4 to be passed and 5 for a supermajority if we were issuing a bond or doing infrastructure work or something like that.
Yeah.
Is the year
Mr.
on?
Kinlan, Mr. Kinlan.
Is the year
Mr.
on?
Kinlan.
Year on?
It is on.
Thank you.
The
Mr.
meetings
Kinlan,
were-
Mike Kinlan.
Oh, sorry, Mike Killen, Precinct 2. The meetings were definitely interesting to watch. A lot of good debate, a lot of good discussion. And to Tom's point, I think most people who have discussed this among themselves, the big question is, who's my point of contact, right? Me and Precinct 2. And there was some discussion about a ward system. And I think that's kind of, it's interesting because it's not super familiar to me. I think most people in Winthrop, we don't have a lot of familiarity with it. I believe it was Vice President Belcher who was talking about the ward system and how that works. Is that effectively divides the town in half into 2 wards?
The thought was, there was a couple discussion points about that. The thought was you would do for example, precinct 1 and 2 would be Ward 1, precinct 3 and 4 would be Ward 2. So now you're still having potential more representation from your area, but you're having more at-large councilors, so there's more opportunity. So that was the thought. And if you did if you did 3 wards, then, again, we're trying to get on an election cycle, so you'd have 2 wards up one time and then 1 ward up the other, so there was some thought about that. If you go to 2 wards, I'll let Councilor Bell, do you have something you want to say? Sure.
It was actually a little more complicated than we thought it was. It's not as simple as just combining precincts. There are like legal requirements for a ward system that don't really map well to the town.
Right.
So that was one of the main reasons we didn't.
And and you mentioned, and I think Lee had mentioned too, one on points of contact, or maybe it was Erin that mentioned points of contact, but, the thought is, right, there's 2 schools of thought. People are gonna call somebody maybe they know, they feel more comfortable, or people are gonna call their precinct counselor. So technically, you'd have your precinct counselor to call, or your 2 at-large counselors to call, or the council president to call. So you have technically 4 points of contact. Now you would have 7 points of contact, right? Because you could call everybody. So that was another thought to that concern, because it was a concern. Erin, again?
Erin Barcelos, precinct 5. Just to that point of like the point of contact, as of right now, even though like I'm in precinct 5, so my point of contact is Joe, but I could reach out to any of you guys.
Right.
So like that's not gonna change, like
Correct.
that's already something that's happening. So
Well,
like,
that's the thought is somebody would say that's an issue because I don't have a point of contact. In theory, you have 9 points of contact.
right, but if people aren't coming and people don't understand that, then they don't know that, right? So again, it goes back to the point of how do we get more people involved? Before, like, I think having more people involved is the only way to get more people to run. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's always good to have more people.
That's all.
Yes, Todd.
Todd Sacco, Precinct 2. I just want to thank the current ordinance review committee, having served on the last one, and having been the person who brought this back to life. Although I'm not entirely thrilled with its current form, I'm glad you brought it forward, and I'm actually thrilled, and I hope it helps us get more competitive. I do think the other component that's been left out of the discussion this time is the actual pay. I think we'll get more interest if we find a way to give a little bit more money to the counselors, because we're clearly in need of some really good qualified counselors.
Good.
Kurt Moore, Precinct 2. I know we've been on 3 of these now, and it's always a big topic of discussion. The feedback from many people is the fear of not being represented. And it's hard in a small town thinking that way because, I mean, the outreach sometimes, like you say, you can reach out to any counselor. So in my head, the thought process over and over also is that in the end, if it does get passed, it still goes out to the voters to vote on.
Not necessarily. This is
is
why there's still stuff to work out, figuring,
Yeah,
right?
so-
It would go out to, we know it would go out to voters to vote for a commission that would
Yep.
look over it more and hold public meetings and such.
Yes, and that was our thought process, though, understanding that it would be that it would go out to the voters if it was passed. So this is the new loophole, and it's not a loophole, but a new point in this. And the other thing that's kind of ironic is that you have to elect for this charter commission 9 members at large to be on the charter commission.
Right.
It is not done by precinct. So that's the other kind of twist in this too, is that, and that's done in 43B, saying it's all at large for the commission. So as I was looking into different school committees, there's different cities that have school committees that are based on precincts also. And in looking at our history, and Jim has brought it up and other people brought it up, it's been very functional to have it at large for our school committee, and it's worked. And part of this in my brain was, even if it gets passed, in 5 years, it can be decided that, no, it's not working, we're gonna change it back. So that's a good thing about the charter being reviewed every 5 years. So, and you can get new faces on the Charter Commission also, which is always great. This round was great, seeing different faces on it. So you can constantly, every 5 years, review this and say, this is not working, let's change it again. I think maybe what's not understood too a lot is that every government is, in your towns and cities, get reviewed on a constant basis. So what doesn't work, the voters in many aspects will get a chance to decide in the end, changes. It's not just the council, unless the council doesn't pass it, then it just drops off and it doesn't go to the state. So I think it's important to understand there's even more background behind a lot of these decisions that might not be understood. And I'm happy to talk to people about it all the time. It's being on 3 of these, hearing input from the town, we do get input from many people. And the aspect of not enough people and how we reach them is the other question. That's been a challenge.
And I mean, I feel very strongly that ultimately this should go somehow, some way, if it gets to that point, go to the voters, because the way it looks here, you're gonna have 9 councilors voting on whether to eliminate their jobs, basically, right? Which doesn't make a lot of sense, because you would eliminate 8 jobs right away, and then you'd have to have new elections. Eliminate 5, 6 jobs right away. And the other thing this says that's different than the other ORC recommendations, any recommendation from the ORC has this public hearing. Ultimately, at the next meeting, the council will vote whether it goes forward on the election. Now, this says, and again, I'm reading it right, but if it says if it means what it says, when there is a petition, or in this case, a proposed amendment to the charter that deals with the number, composition, or manner of election of the legislative body, the council must order an election of a charter commission. So this is saying, if this is accurate, which we think it is, this is saying the council doesn't vote on whether we're electing a charter commission. This says the council must elect a charter commission. So still more to be determined on that. I thought I saw another hand. Anybody on Zoom? Any other questions, thoughts? Karen?
Karen Chavez, as far as the wards are concerned too, the cities that had wards, their square mileage was a lot larger than ours. If you look at Revere, and I think it was Revere, Everett, Melrose, I can't remember, I should have brought my list with me, I apologize. But the cities that we looked at that had wards, their square mileage was much, much greater than ours. I mean, being such a small community that we are, as Councilor Belcher said, we did not even fit the criteria, to be honest with you, to even look at that. And I believe that Denise had already told us at one point that she didn't think that we did. And she was 100% correct on that.
Anyone else from the public? Then we'll go to the council. We'll just start with Councilor Duras. We'll go around if you have any questions on this. And again, this is going to be discussed more at our next meeting. We'll have obviously more information on the way that would go. And then the decisions would be voted on at the next meeting. Councilor Duras?
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Council President. Just a quick comment. Thank you to the Ordinance Committee, the Review Committee. It's reminiscent of the 8 weeks of commitment that we have in the Finance Commission as well. That block of time takes up a lot of your time. I appreciate everything you guys have done. I think the only comment quickly I'll make is I would echo some of the concerns. I mean, I'm very, very open to what the ORC came up with. The only concern I would have is that I am approached on a regular basis by constituents in my precinct, and they come to me often with the first words out of their mouth are, "I'm coming to you because you're my counselor." So I think if a change ends up being made to the new format, like many of you have stated, I think we would need to just do a very solid education effort so that people really do feel that they can reach out. Because I think the obvious benefit is today, people reach out because they know you're their counselor, at least for precinct counselors. And we also reside in the neighborhood. So that's that's a kind of a double benefit that creates that connection between us and our precincts with those members. So just to keep that in mind going forward.
Thank you. Counselor Swope.
I think I'm going to join your yoga class. That's how you're getting away with it.
It's a good way to do it.
No, I do answer questions from, to your point, Tom, about across the board. I think because I answer, or I look at more of the questions that come through Zoom. I think the whole council gets a lot of questions that come to everyone, and then I follow up with Tony, and then Tony tells me it's done. That's really the greatest part. But, so, that's because I'm in a precinct that's kind of different than others. Interestingly enough, not a lot of people have come to me about 3A. And you would think, since it's in the precincts that, I mean, that precinct would be most impacted by that. But I've talked to other people in other precincts about 3A as much as I've talked to anybody in mine. 1.6 square miles is pretty small to think that we couldn't tackle these problems as a whole. If I can't care about flooding on Pico, that's going to impact the town of Winthrop as much as anything else. So climate change is going to affect it. The beach, what happens to the beach influences who comes here to go to the beach. It influences business. So I don't think there's a counselor here that doesn't care collectively about the problems across Winthrop. I can't think of anything that anybody said that just says, well, it's because it's in my district that I care the most. So, and I do think counselors should be caring about each one of those areas and issues because it impacts it. And finally, I think the town could be seen as a whole better, and maybe collectively we could be seen as a whole, not just a precinct or not just a one-issue person. So those are the three things, and I did listen very carefully to what Karen had collected on data and what the other members of this committee did, and I too appreciate the work, and thank you for letting me hang out.
Counselor Tessner.
Thank you, Council President. Just a big thank you to the ORC committee. There's a lot of work that went into this. I watched a few of the meetings. Have some pretty heavy stuff, pretty interesting. Leaves us a lot to consider for all of these motions, not just the composition of the council. We're discussing all of them now.
We don't have, I mean, they're all.
All right. I'll keep it brief then. The only thing that would concern me about the change to Section 2A is whether folks in their individual precincts feel represented and get the best representation. And if we think we can do that with 6 at-large councilors, I wouldn't be opposed.
Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. Again, thank you to the ORC. None of these suggestions were reached frivolously. There was a lot of research that went into all of them, and I think there's a lot of good points on all sides, and we've spent a lot of time going over them, so I'm curious to hear more public comment and thoughts from a wider audience on them.
Counselor Costa.
Yeah, thank you to the ORC as well. I know a lot of work went into this as well. These issues are always important when it comes to representation. One of my biggest concerns is the contact to a specific councilor or a person within your district, or in this case, precinct, to address the problems. Say it's 2, we're talking Morton Street, the flooding. We're talking the Center Business District. We're talking the TIPS program on 1 in my precinct. A direct contact, as Mr. Muller had mentioned, is a big concern, as others have as well. I think as far as the 65% of the precinct councilors have run unopposed, they must have been damn good councilors, as far as I'm concerned. So was that taken into consideration? Here, exactly. Mr. DeRoche, you being one of them? No, there's just a question. Just a question, that's all. But provide all voters with the opportunity to vote for all council seats over time. Committing to a precinct
council run itself, as Ms. Dimes is doing right now, it's a big commitment. I think expanding that to a town-wide for almost 20,000 people, could be challenging for some people. The resources involved, the cost involved, having a town-wide campaign, I've been on many of them. I've run many of them. It's a lot of land to cover, a lot of people to call. Don't get me wrong, we all know a lot of people, this council, all of us. But one of my concerns is that if we have a concentrated amount of councilors on one side of town, could hypothetically the other side of the town be ignored? Or maybe could it be favored? I'm not going to get into hypotheticals in making up stories about what could potentially happen, worst-case scenarios, but those are my concerns as far as the precincts and not having a representative. If all of a sudden we have a unified body that all of a sudden decides to run and control the council. So I'm concerned with that. Maybe I'm overreacting. But with regards to foster townwide representation and accountability, again, that covers that as well. Reduce barriers to candidacy that may exist under precinct-based system. I really don't believe that exists right now. As Councilor Swope mentioned, we all represent every person in this town. We are the point person for our precincts, but I get calls from all over this town, and I'm stopped every day by people, whether it's down in Precinct 3 on the Point, or it's down near the marketplace, etc. And to Mr. DeRoss's point as well, I'm asked, are you my counselor? So they're looking for their counselors, needless to say. And most times I will say, I may not be, but what can I do to help, so forth, so on. So we're all respective to the town people here. So I don't think there's an issue there as well. And last but not least, encourage more residents to run for office by removing geographical restrictions. I think maybe removing those geographical restrictions may help in one way, but also not implementing them will still create another as it relates to not having that representation within that specific part of town. As it stands right now, we have 2 at-large councilors who represent the entire town. They are accessible. They are here right now. Feel free to talk to them after this meeting itself. We also have the town council president, who basically shakes hands with everybody in this town. So we have that town-wide communication and ability to reach out to 3 people as it stands right now. I just think that going at-large for all seats, I think will do more harm than good. No offense to the ORC, that's just my opinion. We are a very small town, 1.6 miles in square, and almost 20,000 people. I know in Everett, the wards in Everett consist of 10,000 people. So you talk about larger cities, but their wards hold large and encompassing groups of people as well. 10,000 to a ward, these are very large. But if you really think of it, in the minutia of all of that, they really act as precinct councilors. So I'm just trying to put this together with other towns as well, as I know the ORC has already done. But I think it wouldn't be prudent to take this approach. I think the small town feel, frankly, in conclusion, I'd love to go back to town meeting and selectmen, to be honest with you. That was, I think, a very much more engaged 150 people in the town, everybody speaking their piece, the selectmen having to answer questions from the public. So again, but maybe I'm just a little too old to maybe reminisce about that. But those are my thoughts. I'm sticking with them. Thank you.
Thank you, and I don't think you're too old.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Councilor DeMarco.
President.
I'm not going to say anything about my opinion on the makeup of the council at this point. I want to still hear from the public and get your opinions first before I make an informed decision. So I look forward to the public for guiding me and helping me out. Like I said, I do have an opinion, but I want to hear from all of you first. Council President, if I may ask a question of
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Karen, you were talking about the wards and how they were much bigger in like communities like Melrose and stuff like that. But, you know, I'm more concerned about the population of the wards because like in terms of, are the populations comparable? Because our density is very big. I mean, we have roughly 20,000 people in the town and, you know, other towns are much more spread out and might have a similar population with wards. Did
Now,
you?
you look at Revere, Chelsea,
Yeah.
Melrose, their populations are all greater than 40,000.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilor Aiello.
Thanks, Mr. President. I will adopt Councilor Costigan's remarks in part in terms of my concern about losing the personal touch of the precinct councilor. Again, my experience is similar to his. I won't repeat it. So, but I do want to thank the ORC. I think all this stuff is very thoughtful. I think we need to have more discussion. As I understand it, the potential for the increase in pay and trying to figure out how to deal with that. You know, this is a part-time position. Everybody has a full-time job out there. People have family obligations, et cetera. I don't think putting a couple extra bucks in your wallet is going to make any difference on the quantity or quality of the count of candidates that we get. But I don't know what does, to be honest with you. Maybe an enhanced healthcare package for those people who are independent contractors might make it more attractive for them. Maybe it's having a shared staff person for the 8 councilors who are not the town council president. So if you can't get at something, they can help you do a little research or something. Because a lot of times you get a flood of calls about 3 different topics and you start Googling things to try to figure out what's going on. So I think that discussion item is an interesting one to me, and I'd like to see more discussion at the next couple of meetings about that. I know its intent was to try to make the position more attractive. I'm not sure the dollar amount investment in that is the best way to go about it, but I could be convinced otherwise.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a question.
Just name and precinct.
Oh, sorry, I'm Keith Isler, precinct 4.
Sure.
I was just curious if anybody's ever put together like a day in the life of a precinct counselor. I personally don't have the slightest clue of like how you would spend your time or your week or your month. I mean, that might be something that would encourage more people, you know, if they're like, oh, wow, I could do that, or I can't do that.
No, it's a really good point, and actually, before we started, people started taking papers this time, we put together, myself and the town clerk, we put together something that kind of, like a job description, right? Because there really isn't, or hasn't been, a job description, you know? People say, oh, they meet twice a month, I could do that.
I would lean into it harder, though. I would like interview the counselors and put together something on YouTube. I think to get a lot more eyes on it.
No, I think that's a really good idea, because
like,
again, this
PDF,
is
nobody's gonna read.
just the people that happen to pull papers, happen to get a piece of paper that said, but there should be more intense definition of a job description, what the day in the life, and more like a week in the life, or a week in the month of the town council, because it's much more involved than I think most people think, and it's changed over the course of the year. The job description technically hasn't changed, but with social media and such, it's changed immensely. But that's a very good idea. Thank you. Karen?
Karen Jarvis, precinct 2. As far as the monetary change, we weren't looking to make the councilors rich. Currently, it's $2,600 and $5,200, am I correct?
That's $50 a week for a council.
Yeah, and it has not changed since January 1st of 2006.
Correct.
So I think that it's about time that it does change. And as far as what Councilor Aiello said about some sort of an enhanced health package, health unfortunately would cost upwards of $20,000 a year, which is not what we're looking for. We're not looking to pay the councilors $20,000 a year. We were looking more like at a $5,000, $10,000 deal right now. That's why we didn't even discuss health, to be honest with you.
And again, health was something that was brought up when we had the Charter Commission 20 years ago, and it was something originally the the Charter Commission didn't want any. They wanted it to say as a volunteer position like selectmen were, select people were, and changed it to do a small stipend, but specifically said that these people were not eligible for health insurance. But maybe, if health, and that's obviously, the cost is just prohibited, but could there be a package where, a counselor is eligible but pays 50% instead of 15, or whatever, So I guess anything's on the table potentially at any time, but thank you.
But not the way that health exists right now.
No, it would be
I guess that's.
cost prohibitive, yep. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you all for your comments, and we'll have much more to say about this August 12th. Public comment. Open up again. There'll be 2 sessions of public comment. Anything on Zoom? Okay. Correspondence, Denise?
No, I didn't have any.
Committee reports.
Excuse me.
Public health and safety, Suzanne?
sorry.
Council,
I apologize. I'm sorry, I apologize. Joe did send me one, you wanted to reflect about the Zoom. That someone had sent an email that they were concerned about the Zoom being,
Okay.
done.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that at the next
Yep,
subcommittee
thank you.
report. Public health and safety, Councilor
Yeah,
Swope.
Public Health and Safety met today at 6 o'clock, and Pat and I were there. The meeting was called to order at 6, and the committee discussed the National Grid WR number 311166565 North Sidewalk Main Street project. And I can read that for you, but just to let you know, before I read it, the committee did make a motion to pass the project, but first they wanted to make sure it was expedited so it did not interfere with the school opening of August 27th. So the motion would read to accept the WR number 3111665 National Grid project. It's the north side of Main Street. National Grid is to install underground facilities on the north side of Main Street, beginning at a point approximately 105 feet north by northwest of the center line of the intersection of Winthrop Street and Main Street, and continuing approximately 39 feet in east direction, installing plus or minus 39 feet PVC conduit, and number 6, cable to feed traffic signal cabinet for the town of Winthrop that will be located at northeast corner of Winthrop Street and Main Street, intersection coming from the existing pole number 844. All civil work will be done by the town of Winthrop's general contractor, Deep Corp, Winthrop, Massachusetts. And so the only caveat for us, in addition to that, was this expedited process. We did make a couple of more comments about this, just so that we have it on record, is that we do think that both audio and visual signs are needed. This is not part of the National Grid project, as another company puts in the traffic signals. So this is not part of that motion, but we did have a lot of comments about how that should be handled. It's such a particularly busy intersection and noisy, so for both handicapped positions as well as the fact that the kids get off the bus there and sometimes run across the street, those audio signals ought to be clear and strong and loud.
All right, thank you, and you came out with positive recommendation.
We did come up with
So, I don't want to put Councilor Swope through having to read that entire motion again, so if the council doesn't mind, I'll take that out of order. Motion to take it out of order?
Motion.
Motion been made by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Tassinari. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Now, the motion is stated for National Grid to go forward, came out of committee with a positive recommendation, does not require a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And just, Council Swope made a comment on that also. We have DPW Director here. Just to inform you, this is not a town project, it's a state project. We have limited ability, but if the director would like to speak
Yeah,
a little.
so, one, as far as expediting the school, the conduits are already in. So they just have to feed the wires through.
I see, okay.
Audio and visual upgrades are included in both, they're all part of the project.
Oh, they're not just part of the National Grid, though, are they?
National Grid is just bringing feed.
Yeah, they're just bringing feedback.
That's what I
The
thought.
components and equipment come with the project.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's not on here, but yes. Vice President Belcher for a joint committee with Rules and Ordinance and Finance.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Rules and Ordinance and Finance met tonight to discuss the motion presented by Councilor Aiello at the last meeting about voting, you needing a vote to hold a meeting in an area that isn't Zoom capable or capable of teleconferencing. We met jointly to talk about the proposal of the rule and also the cost of equipping the senior center and potentially other areas in town with that equipment. We're going to hold it in committee while we look into the cost of looking at other spaces. We talked about the senior center, the gathering room, the council chambers, the Lyceum room. There's a lot of spaces in town that we could potentially have meetings that aren't capable of Zoom. So we just want to get numbers on that before we roll it out. But we are committed to making sure that these meetings are accessible to everyone.
Thank you. And Firehouse Building Committee did meet recently. It's in the town manager's report, and we picked an architect, which is Kessel Booz, who has been working with the town for the past 5, almost 6 years. The way that worked, we could have just given the contract without going out to bid, but we wanted to be as transparent as possible. We did receive several bids. We had companies come in. The subcommittee from the Firehouse Building Committee met, ranked each one. Those rankings are available for the public to see. It's part of the process. Kessel Booz did come out on top. A couple of people had them ranked perfectly. But they're very familiar with the project. Obviously, there's a financial impact, which is beneficial for the town, where they've already done so much of the work. But we're very happy. I know Kessel Booz has been notified. They have signed a contract.
Working it out now.
Working out a contract with them now. But they're very excited to remain part of the project, and they will be having public meetings soon. We will have a public forum soon. Firehouse Building Committee meeting, I believe, meeting next Tuesday.
July 29th.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
5 o'clock in this room.
Yep, and the next item in the timeline will be to start getting together an RFQ for the demolition and asbestos removal of the middle school. The thought process is to remove asbestos in the summer is quite costly because a lot of schools around the state, if they're older schools, if they're doing projects, they want to do it in the summer when there's no kids. So the price to have asbestos removed is almost twice as much. So the thought process is to wait a little bit, put the bid out beginning of August. The thought that they would come in middle of September, begin the asbestos removal, it should take 4 to 6 weeks. And then as we hit the beginning of November, they'll start the demolition, and by the end of the calendar year, the building should be leveled. In the spring, we'll be going over architectural drawings, we'll be finalizing that. Again, all public forums will be, the committee will be having public forums on a regular basis. The Owner's Project Manager will also be having a newsletter that's coming out that we're going to link to the town website, as well as link it to the Firehouse Building Committee as the Firehouse website. So that will give everybody even more information on how the process is going and the timeline and such. We still feel that once, probably early summer next year, once shovels go in the ground, it's probably a 14-month build. So you're looking potentially the end of calendar 27, potentially January of 2028, when we would have a grand opening of the new fire station. So that is that. School department report was met. Update policy committee meetings, I believe there was only, I think Cheryl Lane was continued on the Board of Appeals. And 50 Somerset from the Winter Planning Board, 50 Somerset Ave. The applicant proposing a 4-story mixed-use building in the CBD with construction of 20 residential units in a retail space. The project is within 10 feet of the residential building and will require A variance of elevation. At the June 23rd, 2025 meeting, the board agreed to condition the approval on the project based on the applicant's response to the feedback and continued the project. So this is still in the planning board. Town manager's report has been circulated, but town manager has
I'll just
few
confirm.
updates and.
You had asked me to check with Eric Halverson for,
Yes.
he is confirmed for the 8/12 at 6:30 in person.
Okay.
So we'll have him here for that. Just for anybody who didn't read it, the Revere Street Tip Project, the next section of, taking up road there, where we're just, rebuilding the road from Kennedy to Sagamore, that'll be done August 8th, and then in the nighttime hours like we've been doing. We have, Steve and I talked about it today, we've asked them with the dry conditions to increase the watering, to keep the dust down, so we're working on that.
Tony, not to interrupt, they changed it to August 7th.
Oh, okay, sorry. It'll be a day early. So, it's good news. And that's, she mentioned that. We will have the water rate presentation next week, but the bills will be processed before that, so I want to let everybody know that the rates are going up 57 cents this year, a 2.17 increase over last year, so your new combined rate will be $26.84. But we will have that standard presentation that I do at the next meeting, just to break that down and how we came up with that rate. But anything to add, I'm certainly open to questions.
A couple of things I just want to talk about. We've had comments again from the public on the MBTA service down the point. Obviously, it's a concern. It's been out there for a while, but it is definitely a concern, especially. Yeah, so if, again, we're trying to get in touch, I know I've asked you to try.
I've reached out, I just haven't heard back yet, so I'm going to reach out through Lydia and Jeff, Senator Edwards and Rep. Turco too, to see if we can get a better contact and find out what's going on with it.
And I also want to thank DPW for the crosswalks, because those are being done, I think, as we speak, pretty much going throughout the town.
Yeah, townwide.
Which is fantastic. I've been down the track at Miller Field. Again, this is part of the property of the town, and the field is still in good shape. It doesn't get the play that a lot of other fields get, and I think we're going to get a little longer life expectancy, but I do have some pictures which I'll share later of the track, and there's some issues that we have to take a look at the track. So, and also just to let people know, Little League down at the A field, I guess, there'll be some improvements coming thanks to a grant from for $25,000. I think Senator Edwards helped that.
Senator Edwards or Rep. Turco, yeah, one of the.
Representative Turco.
And
And then Winter Foundation is also putting in some money. They're going to be moving the scoreboard down there and building new dugouts. So that's a project that you'll see starting to proceed pretty quickly.
Yeah, just quick thanks to the DPW, they're going to be helping out as well with some of the demo and stuff like that, so.
Yes.
It's truly a team effort.
Town project. Open it up for a few questions. Anybody has? Councilor Dross.
Thank you, Council President. Tony, 3 things real quick. Kessel and Booz, I am by no means an expert on how these construction projects go, but my understanding is that after you hire the architect, when it comes to how the new fire station is going to be powered, had a lot of questions coming from the Climate Commission, other folks in town that are just curious about at what point in the process do we start looking at how that building is going to be powered? And when can the public start to kind of contribute thoughts about the use of renewable energy, namely if at all possible, the avoidance of powering that facility with natural gas?
Yeah, that's, all those things have to be looked at as part of the design process. They're required to look at electrification, geothermal, like all of those things will be looked at. And the cost analysis will be done. Where we land on that, firehouse building, we get my call as far as, what the final say is, but that's, where we go. It's gonna be driven by money, obviously, but.
And does Kessel Booz help us with that, or that's a separate?
No, it's got Kessel Booz and the OPM, that's all standard part of the process.
Got it. Okay.
And the building code requires, you gotta run the conduit now anyway, even if you're not gonna put solar in, you still gotta run the conduit, and you gotta do a lot of this prep stuff now that the building code requires anyway, with regard to electrification, so.
And if you look at the mission statement for the Firehouse Building Committee since day one, that's been a goal of the project. And we looked at Lexington to be the prime example, right? So everything is going to be looked at.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, obviously, when we construct a building like that to take action about decarbonization, so thank you. 2 other things real quick, and I think this is what Council President was just talking about. I did have a resident in Precinct 6 emailed the council about the cut in bus service to the point. So that's what you were discussing earlier.
And this has been a plan all along for the last couple of years. We're talking about stopping at the landing when the new bus routes kick in, so.
And when we've raised concerns to MBTA about this previously, their response has been what?
Nothing. They don't change it. They say, sorry, the numbers don't justify, blah, 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 and that's pretty much.
The ridership.
The ridership numbers, yeah. That was the original comments. So, and that's why they cut it off the landing.
Any other?
Interesting. One last thing.
Sure.
More to come on that
Yeah.
point with MBTA. Last thing I'll mention, and you know what it's going to be. Our favorite topic of late. And I say that tongue in cheek. For those who were not at the town council meeting the last time, we had members from the DCR come in, the director of natural resources as well as one of the technicians. And the takeaway that I emailed the council, my takeaways from that meeting, naturally you can imagine, especially in Precinct 6, but all across the town, there is lots of commentary, feedback, concern about the seaweed and bug problem. Thankfully, speaking of Councilor Swope's mention of our yoga classes, that tends to be the one spot near Cutler Street entrance that has not been infested by bugs, but it's my understanding from my experience walking the beach and a lot of folks that once you get further north up the beach, it is a bug-infested situation. So my takeaway that I emailed the council and to you, Tony, as well, was it sounds like by law, and for anybody who didn't listen last time, very quick synopsis is Winthrop Beach, unlike Ural Beach or Revere Beach, for example, is under the Wetlands Protection Act. So it limits what we can do to clear the seaweed rack that we've accumulated due to the storms. So the bottom line question I asked the DCR folks who were here last time was, what can we do? And the answer came back, we can clear up to 1/3 of the seaweed rack on the beach. Typically, that's how the limit that they can address.
In coordination with them, yes.
And you and I were communicating about this. It sounds like the DCR leadership is meeting or has met, and they're going to come back to us.
They're going to come back to us with some dates and some plans and what they think they can do and offer for help. So I've been in constant contact with everyone. So just waiting to hear back what their plan is.
The only thing I would ask is that they come back to us ASAP, given we're about to come to the end of July.
Yep.
So we will quickly see a beach season go by us without any action. I personally have a big invested interest in this, so please keep us posted.
Absolutely.
And if we don't get a speedy response from DCR, I personally am happy to help jump in and help communicate with you to the DCR. We really have to do something. And the good news is, at yoga classes and in my conversations with folks in town, including my precinct, I'm counting, and folks on Facebook as well, I'm counting about 15 or 20 volunteers who have said, we will get out there and help the DCR rake. So while we've got the interest, let's do it. Thank you.
Councilor Swope?
Tony, I was down at the, at Fort Banks to watch softball the other day, and the bugs down there are really bad on the field. I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but they were.
Mosquitoes in particular, or
They were,
mosquitoes?
yeah.
I mean, I'll call Northeast Mosquito Control, see if we can get them out.
Yeah, because, when a kid comes home with 9 bug bites, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah. And since they play there a lot, I think that's something to look into aside from the beach too. Am I right that some of the seaweed has gone out to sea, essentially? I mean, a little bit.
A little bit,
Okay,
yeah.
because I was down there the other day. I didn't
The next king tide.
Didn't
will
look
be-
like that
yeah.
last
It went
night.
up.
Yeah,
It was
unfortunately,
bad.
the next king tide's not till October, so.
Okay, great.
That'll be the big one.
Wonderful.
Vice President Belcher?
Thank you. Just a little bit of clarification on the MBTA stuff. Right now, the bus schedule has been changed. We were told that it wasn't actually changed. They printed an update and that wasn't happening, but it is actually happening. There's reduced peak bus routes. So that's the most acute issue. The other thing is the bus network redesign. We've sent a series of letters and I've attended meetings and stuff for that, and that's where they're gonna end the service at the landing. So those are two separate issues, but that first one is like a huge issue right now. The peak hours are the service is incredibly diminished from what it should be. So we should use that as like the acute reason to get them to respond to us. And I know that is challenging, but we can go further with the bus network redesign later.
May I ask, Council? Vice President Belcher, I've also had comments about the fact of transfer stations.
Yes.
Because it's changed, there's no protection, and transfer, you can wait for 40 minutes now for a transfer, particularly on those 3 areas.
Yep.
The transfer, so I don't know if you could do anything to help.
Yeah, absolutely. These are all things we've included in our letters. The bus network redesign divorces the routes from being a loop within town, and there'll be one bus route that goes to Beachmont and one that goes on all the way to Maverick, actually. But it makes it impossible to get from the point to the center on one bus. So that's a huge problem. It cuts out the Governor's Park stop. That's a huge problem. That's our most frequented stop. They do tell us we don't have the ridership numbers. They use data based on cell phones, which whenever you're looking at a small sample size, it doesn't scale correctly, and I think we're kind of a victim of that in this. But we have also pushed on them for bus shelters, so we need some attention from them, but that the bus route and schedule change right now is the most pertinent.
Any other questions for the town manager? Oh, yep, sure.
Sorry. I just want to bring up, the Massport CEO mentioned that he wants to make Logan like a mega airport over the next few years, which is very concerning. So if we could try and get them engaged with us. They also have these plans to do net zero stuff, which typically companies will buy swaths of the rainforest in the Amazon or Canada or whatever, when we deserve the mitigation for that now. And I just worry if we wait till we're renegotiating next year, we'll kind of miss the boat.
Renegotiation will start now.
Yeah, we should, there's also the runway safety area enhancement project on 927 that they're doing, so we have a couple touch points with them right now that I think we should hold on to and really run with. We don't have the Airport Hazards Committee up and running right now, so that may be something, I don't know if the president wants to think about looking for public folks to be engaged with them right now, but there's a lot happening over there, and I don't want to miss the boat, no pun intended, on the airport stuff.
All right, Council Costi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, Town Manager, with regards to mosquitoes, since it was brought up tonight, I have gotten a couple of calls regarding the 2025 plan for mosquito spraying town-wide. Has that been determined yet at all, or are you waiting
It's already
for?
in motion. This is literally the season, probably already started. So Northeast Mosquito Control, see, we can get the answer from that.
Yeah, I mean, like a plant-wide,
We don't do anything town-wide. People can call individually. They do stuff around where they put bricks inside the stormwater catch basins to try to keep mosquito breeding down, and they do other things around town. But as far as individual home addresses and whatnot, you can call and get your house, put on a list to spray. But as far as overall, like mosquitoes, we watch the mosquito, West Nile virus, Triple E, those kind of things before we trigger a town-wide spray, so we haven't done that yet. So.
okay, thank you, I just wanted to mention that, but, and just secondly, the timeline for the pedestrian lights at McGee's Corner after that N-Star power is supplied, is there a timeline on when that's going to be operational?
Director?
Yeah, those won't come until the latter part of this year, if not spring of next, as the final pieces to the project, the light fixtures and the traffic lights. They're putting all the foundations in, they're doing all the, wiring. But for actual fixtures, I don't know that they'll be installed. Certainly not before probably November, if they even get in this year.
And again, my concerns are the crossing and the density of the amount of people getting off the bus, the students,
I'll get an update.
the lights
I do
themselves.
a bi-weekly meeting, I'll get an
Okay.
update on that.
And in all appreciation, you did a hell of a job last year in taking care of that issue initially, but I just hate to see that the lights maybe go astray once again, and we're back here complaining about, the children crossing the roadway there unsafe. So, I mean, if there's any way to expedite that, I would highly recommend it. Thank you, Director.
One thing that I just will opportunity to add, we did get approved by the state to put solar powered beacons at every crossing along the corridor, which is a huge.
Excellent.
Cool.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anything else? And I will ask,
Counselor Aiello.
we have, oh, I'm sorry.
I thought Councilor DeMarco was
Counselor
going to
No.
ask a question. 3 quick things. the state budget's been passed and the supplemental budgets that came out of the millionaire's tax or fair share amendment, whatever they call it, allocations have been made. Can we get a quick update about any extra or less stuff that's coming from the state since the execution of those
I don't
documents?
have those numbers with me, but I'll get you those numbers.
That would be great.
Yep.
The second thing, related to the Army Corps of Engineers, I assume it's still radio silence
Nope, I have some good news.
Oh.
We actually got approval. From
for
Army
the Fisherman's
Corps.
Bend?
Fisherman's Bend, yeah. I sent an email out to mosquito control, sending them the copy of the permit. Now, their indication last time was they wanted to work during the winter months.
Winter time,
Guessing
yeah.
That they're gonna push forward this winter, but we did get permission from Army Corps. Candidate Times and I spoke about that earlier today, so yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's terrific. And then the last thing, and this is really for public consumption as opposed to getting anything done, but one of the things I learned from Hannah and a little bit from you, Tony, with respect to Logan Airport and how they count environmental damages, is that they don't count the pollution coming out of the airplanes, because that's controlled by the FAA, even though we get pollution. And they don't count any traffic coming into Logan Airport until it reaches the old Logan Airport boundaries, right? So they measure all this little stuff on the airport, and they say, we're going to get net zero on that. And even within that world, they don't want to invest in our community to make us have a lower cost of living by giving us free insulation, free windows, and all that stuff. They are buying forests other places. That's unacceptable. Related to that is that nowhere can you find a comprehensive data set that shows all the pollution that's coming out of Logan Airport, whether on the property or off the property, as a result of that. There's this commission that you and I had joined on some calls, appears to be going nowhere. I think this council needs to have a serious discussion about whether or not we want to go to EOEA and demand real transparency about everything that's coming out. Because it's not only noise and carbon emissions and all that stuff, but we're beginning to understand health is affected primarily through these microparticles that come off of the airplanes, et cetera. So I think from a public health perspective, from a economic justice perspective, this council needs to sort of figure out how to get on a front footing as they're looking to expand, because from my perspective, they don't treat us fairly. They go talk to the Boston Business Journal about their expansion plans, but they don't come talk to us. They don't come talk to Revere. They don't come talk to Chelsea. I'm just very worried about the patterns we're seeing there.
Thank you. And just since we have the DPW director here, instead of doing it at Public Relations, we have two electronic recycling this weekend, correct?
That's correct.
And hazard waste.
Household hazardous waste.
So if you want to just give a brief description of that?
Yeah, the timelines I don't have off the top of my head.
I think it's 9 to 2.
Yeah, so the first 2 hours, I believe, or the first 3 hours, I believe, is the recycling, and then the latter part of the day is the household hazardous waste.
And there's a cost per, depending on the item.
There's costs, yeah, and that's posted on the DPW website, as well as the exact time. I apologize for not.
Yeah. And it's this Saturday,
This Saturday.
9 o'clock, starting at 9, going to like 2 at Fort Banks.
At the DPW.
At the DPW building. Thank you. And before we go on, I think Councilor Tassinari had something he'd like to say.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the acknowledgement. It's come to my attention quite clearly that having lacked an explanation as to the recusal of the guideline discussion versus the vote on the regulations discussion, I have created confusion as to how that comes about, how that works. And a lot of folks have misunderstood what conflict of interest is and whether or not I had one and acted in that conflict. So I had recused myself from the 3A guidelines issue because I lacked information as to the extent of the involvement of my employer, which is Mass DOT, in creating those guidelines. I never wrote anything about a conflict of interest because I did not have that information. At the time, I didn't know all the facts, and I sat out those discussions, and I sat out the vote on the guidelines. And then the SJC decisions came down, and the guidelines were struck because the law required regulations. Now, regulations are not guidelines. Regulations require promulgation, they require public hearings, they require a higher standard of publication before they actually go into effect and before, which makes them harder to change ad hoc, but it also makes them easier for government to enforce. The SGC also ruled that the governor has a wide latitude to enforce compliance, including limiting grant eligibility. Grants which we are currently out of compliance for, which fund some of our, which are the primary source of fundings for some of our departments that we can't adequately fund in our operating budget. The first one that comes to mind is our public health department, which if you were present for that budget meeting, you would understand the reliance. It's about like $625,000 of their whole entire budget, which is only about, I think, close to $900,000 comes from state grants that we're now ineligible for. So further, the state legislation started including language in their bond bills where there is a ton of grant funding for infrastructure projects, for our roads, for our climate resilient projects, for our flood control, and for our economic development. Now, I could have stayed on the sidelines because it was politically convenient, but the potential loss to this town of those millions of dollars will be catastrophic. And 2,600 people didn't vote for me to do the convenient thing. They voted for me to do the right thing. And the right thing was to find a way to be involved, or to at least do everything in my in my power to gather the information on what it would take to be involved and to voice my opinion and voice the opinions of pretty much 90% of the people that I spoke to about this issue in the town. So I went back to researching about how disclosures work and what constitutes a conflict of interest. And it turns out that all that's required to dispel the appearance of a conflict of interest is an explanation through filing what's called a 23B disclosure, which I have the one that I sent to the clerk on June 12th, right here, but I'm sure there's several people out there that have already read it. In this disclosure, what I am saying, what I'm reporting is that my employment with MassDOT does not create a conflict of interest because there is no gain to me or my agency as a result of taking part in the discussion, taking part in the vote on townwide zoning. There's also no evidence that I have found through combing the EOHLC's public records releases and speaking to our own counsel at the agency that MassDOT was involved in creating any of these regulations. There's also no enforcement capacity that MassDOT has on any of these regulations. So there's no way that I would be representing the town to my agency or the agency to my town, which is another type of conflict of interest. It's called divided loyalties. So that part of the conflict of interest would be satisfied as having no conflict. So no gain, no representation, no conflict. Filed the public disclosure, but what I failed to do, and I apologize for, was not explaining that publicly. I should have done that before I started my explanation on how I saw the MBTA Communities Act would affect the town I should have done a similar thing to what I did now, explain why it's not a conflict, and that my disclosure had already been submitted. And it did take me just until the last hour to really gather all that information as to my agency's involvement in these regulations, because there was nothing to find. So it was hard to find the answers when what you're looking for is just not there. So that's what I had to say tonight. Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me the time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, old business, National Grid has already been discussed and voted on. The abandonment motion is continued. Attorney Cipolletta has had a lot going on in the last couple of weeks, but he will be prepared and ready to go for our next meeting. Fire hydrant poles, which we discussed at the last meeting, I had asked for town manager to look into. We have roughly 450 hydrants, and we have roughly 450 poles, which are fiberglass poles, which over time, the fiberglass wears out, and they're a hazard to children as well as uneducated adults who try to do the same thing, like myself. So we have secured some funding, we're looking at it, and the goal is to do half of them potentially this year,
Half of them
half
this
next
year,
year.
half of them
Town
next year.
manager.
240, we're gonna apply it, as of, $32.50 each, totaling $7,800, and we'll get those 240 out there this year, and then we'll come next year.
Thank you so much, appreciate it. New business, the ORC recommendations we've gone over. We will be discussing this the 12th. If anyone has any brief statements they want to make on the ORC, we talked about it earlier. I feel more than happy to do it now. Yeah, Councilor
Just
Swope?
one
Sure.
real quick thing. I have a lot to say about that, and some of it's not very favorable, Tony, but I did not see any capital in that at all. So, I mean, I saw operational issues, operational budget issues, but there's no capital budget.
This is the ORC recommendations, I know,
sorry.
and you want to make and we
sorry.
have gone over the ORC. I know you want to make a statement on
Yeah.
RKG, which we're going to go
RKG,
into
I'm sorry.
detail, but if you want to take a few minutes now just to make a quick statement on that.
On the RKG.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I guess I'll ask the council for approval. Council Swope just wants to make a statement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those no.
Aye.
Just a quick update.
On
Yeah.
the fiscal
On-
impact analysis, is that the question?
On the, yes, which was part of the town manager's report.
I know we're
So we're
gonna-
going to go over this in much more detail.
Right.
It's just a statement.
I know we're going to discuss it further, and I'm sorry, I was thinking RKG.
I didn't know.
But I don't see anything about capital expenditures, so if indeed they could discuss that or dismiss that or anything else,
That was what we asked them to do. We asked them to just do the analysis so we know, and then it's up to the community to take a look at that. What is 900, what does an additional 80 students mean for our schools? Do we have to build a new building? And then we can do that research ourselves, but that's not what we asked RKG to do.
none, so no capital expenditures are included in this report, and you didn't ask them to do that.
No, that wasn't part of it. That's not how you would do that. That's not how it's normally done. So I can get into more detail once he's here, but.
And we do, and now we have a few weeks.
And that's what wasn't
again,
what I
the
was
whole
asking.
council, and I think town manager had said the whole council, we're trying to compile.
Yeah, if you've got questions, send them to me. I would
And,
hate to.
because it is a statement, it's a cumbersome thing to go through, but I encourage all the councils to take a look and try to get some questions. And capital is one, infrastructure is one also, but thank you. So we're done. Public comment. Scott?
So I just wanted to follow up on what
Scott Mahoney,
Councilor
right,
Castanari
Precinct
said.
3.
And,
Scott?
just to be very clear, I'm
No, that's
personally 100% against the recall initiative to remove him from the town council. And I encourage the members of the council and the Winthrop community to reject this initiative. The provision is not meant to be a political ploy or a tool. It is meant to ensure our leadership is held to a higher standard. In my opinion, Councilor Castanari has not violated any ethical standards or the oath he took since elected as councilor at large. If anything, he has served the Winthrop Town Council and the residents of the Winthrop community with the same level of professionalism and ethical acumen as the rest of his fellow councilors.
Thank you. Mr. Dowd?
anonymous precinct one. I think there's a king tide coming up on the 23rd, 24th. I'm not sure if it means anything, but I looked it up last month.
I looked it up too, I didn't mention that, but
That's it? All
I,
right, thank you.
yeah.
As far as the trees concerned, oh my, as far as the tree is concerned, it's missing, stolen from town property. There was an incident 25 years ago when somebody took a tree down in front of their house and then used it for firewood, not in his particular house, but in his neighbor's house. So somebody benefited from this, from the thievery of a tree. The same thing is going on right now. How do we know that someone didn't get 3 quarts of wood for free that belonged to the town of Winthrop? I thought somebody's going to follow up on this, but it's not on the agenda. I'd like it to be on the agenda. I've asked for a report at least 3 or 4 times to find out what the disposition is of this tree. If it was the tree insured. I've asked that question 3 times, haven't got a response. Who took the tree down? We don't know who did that. Who benefited from this this tree? They're going to heat their house for the next 3 or 4 years with our property. We're at a loss and somebody else is at a gain. Why don't we know the answers to this problem? As far as Massport's concerned, I was on a committee. We did an epidemiological study 25 years ago. It's a lost cause. FAA rules, we're not going to beat them ever. Hopefully, at some point, they won't be using these harsh chemicals and fuel that poison us on a daily basis. So nothing's going to change there. It's been an ongoing problem. And I went to meetings in Boston with the FAA, and they just laughed at us. Call us liars and cheats and stupid people. That's the way they act when they get you at their meetings. They don't care what you say, what you think. They don't believe you. They don't want to help us. They did a study about soundproofing, and maybe we got 5 houses. And they did it during COVID because nobody was buying their plants at the time. And they were abusive. There's no question about it. And they're not going to stop abusing us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, Mike from Precinct 2, just to reiterate and piggyback on the discussion around the Airport Hazards Commission, those concerns. Little known, in addition to the dangers of particulate matter, in communities that are exposed to transportation noise, there's actually, I believe it's a 75% increased risk of heart attack, cardiovascular disease. Very, very serious issues tied to noise pollution in and of itself, never mind, the jet fuel and things that are coming down. So definitely put yourselves in the best position with the best information to be able to go forward and try and claw back as much mitigation money as we have, because these are very, very real, far-reaching health threats that we face.
Thank you. Yes, Kim?
Kim Downs, Precinct 2, Chairperson of the Conservation Commission. I have 3 things. Little clarification to Councilor DeRoss's information about the Wetlands Protection Act. Every resource area in the town of Winthrop is under the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. There's no exceptions, just that. And then I believe the DCR said that they can remove 1/3 of the rack line if there was an emergency, a health emergency that has been announced. And that's something that goes on between the state and the health department and the town manager. So 1/3 of the rack line if there is an emergency that has been announced. The Conservation Commission is officially put on the books with the code sweep beach cleanup September 7th. We're going to have one from behind Water Tower Hill all the way down to Deer Island, and this is with support of the DPW Director, Steve Callett, and town. And signups for that are mass.gov/coast sweep as of August 15th. You can go and sign and do your waiver. October 7th, we're going to do one at Fisherman's Bend. And we hope to see lots of faces and lots of volunteers down there. It's kind of a cool cleanup. We actually take an inventory on cards or on an app, and that data goes to DC, and they actually analyze the data of what's in the ocean and what's coming up in the rack line, and so that they can do legislation to eliminate some of those sources. So it's pretty cool. The third thing they had was Donovan's Beach has been closed for a week due to high bacterial counts. I just wanted to know what the testing procedures are, and if we're visiting, how it's supposed to be done. 3 feet out, 1 foot below the surface of the water is where the test is supposed to be taken. I want to make sure that we are actually doing that properly, and that our signage is insufficient. We have one sign on the far end of the beach, not in the center where people walk in, and we don't have a no dogs allowed sign on that beach, and I think that's a major contribution to the bacterial count down there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you just restate that again about the September 7th?
September 7th, we're going to do Euro Beach from behind Water Tower Hill, all the way as close down to Deer Island as we can get. And then October 7th will be the Fisherman's Bend, but there'll be more information. There's going to be flyers, they'll be posted around town. It'll be on the Mass.gov's website. I'm sure the town manager will put it in his letter, and we'll have it on the website.
Thank you.
More info will come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen?
Karen Chavez, Precinct 2. With a change in ambulance service from Action back to Cataldo, one truck in town, is it a BLS or an ALS? And if it is only a BLS, how quickly do we have an ALS response?
You could respond.
Yeah, it'd be multiple. It's gonna be one BLS, one ALS, and then what they call a kind of a transport car like an SUV. So we're gonna have 3 apparatus available to us.
Oh, because I think your list.
What's that? I don't believe so. It says they're gonna have, they'll have more, but they'll be able to store one truck here permanently, but they'll have other vehicles available to us that they'll station out around town and in the local areas.
In town or within the confines of Winthrop?
Yes.
Not by St. Anthony's?
Correct.
Okay.
That was why we went with Cataldo, just because of the
All right, just
additional
wanted to be
resources.
sure, that's all, because that's a long trip into Winthrop.
Yep, no.
Carol?
Yes, I wanted to just appoint.
Carol Beach Precinct.
Carol Beach, Precinct 1. Thank you. Just a point of clarification, I was on the airport call last week about 27, runway 27, the work they're doing there. And I asked a few questions. One was that slab that they are putting, that 1,000-foot slab, are any planes going to be idle there? The answer is no. That is only there, put there by the FAA for any planes that either overshoot or undershoot the runway. So I didn't want any planes to be, kind of idle another 1,000 feet closer to Point Shirley, so that's why I asked the question. And then the other thing, just to kind of come up with what you said about airport, and I've been doing a lot of research about pollution and where it is it in the air, how does it hit us? And 37% of the pollution from jet fuel happens in the taxi, actually on the runways. So it happens on the ground close to us and not higher up in the air. And it's because of the amount of fuel it takes to just taxi the weight of planes back and forth. So I do think, I agree, there's a lot of health conditions, there's a lot of concerns and noise and all that stuff. Just on my block, myself and my neighbors around me, I've had cancer 3 times. My neighbors on the other side have both passed. So I think it's something we need to pay attention to and something that I'd like to be involved with going forward.
Thank you. Yes.
I just have a point of clarification. You were talking about.
Just again,
earlier-
name and precinct.
Oh, Jennifer Precinct 1. You were talking earlier, and he said that the Army Corps of Engineers are coming to Fisherman Bend. Is that because of the flooding?
No.
I'll defer to the town manager on.
Town manager can, you can,
All right, this is public comment, right?
I know.
Yeah.
You can speak, just quick, just clarification on.
It's Northeast Mosquito Control wanted to clean up a Fisherman's Bend, go in there and clean up the debris and whatnot.
Yeah.
And, pull out some weeds, all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, where it's tidal, they needed permission from the Army Corps of Engineers to do that work. They were waiting for the permit to do it from the Army Corps. Now that they have the permit, then they can proceed to do the work.
Okay, I just
So it's
didn't know
not
if
the
they were
Army Corps
coming
coming
there
in.
because of flooding and
It's
stuff
not,
like
it's
that.
Northeast Mosquito Control is going to be doing the work.
Any other comments, public comments? Anything on Zoom? Yes.
Cassie Woodhouse?
Yes, hi, Cassie Whithouse, Precinct 6. First, I wanted to say that there is a deadline that passed recently for the MBTA zoning law. That zoning update was required to be submitted by July 14th, and we have missed that deadline. Shortly thereafter, the Attorney General's office said that it will give folks until January to become compliant or make a good effort to get closer to compliance. before initiating lawsuits against the non-compliant communities. So we now have until January, and we need to take that good grace granted seriously, because there are grants out there that we will not have access to, and this will have an impact on our community far greater than a zero unit compliance plan that people just don't want to vote in favor of, because they feel like they have a bad feeling about what might be out there in the future in regards to something that is a law written down on paper, and the impacts and outcomes and the things that the state is required to do and is able to do are very clear. A counselor noted that there has not been a lot of feedback on 3A from people in her precinct, which she would think would be the opposite, because that, Seal Harbor is one of the areas that will be quote unquote impacted. Really, it's just an area identified that the zoning will now match the building that has already been built. If they were to approve that plan, that speaks to the hyper focus of just a few people in town, myself being one of them, because I work with zoning, so I have a better understanding of it. And that speaks to the broader issue of communicating out things that are going on in town council. Not everyone is going to town council meetings every other week, and not everyone is watching them at home later or doing follow-up. So I know that the counselors feel a lot of heat to fight and stand up for Winthrop, but what is the most impactful way to stand up for Winthrop is to fight for our grant funding, to fight for us to have access to other funding sources that will provide support to our community. Our DPW department, our health department do the best that they can, and we have a very tight budget because we have a small community, but we could be getting more money from the state, and we could be supporting affordable home ownership in our community from outside sources. We could be bringing the tax dollars that we provide to the state back into this community, and we do not have access to that right now. It is a big risk, and it will make an impact on our budget. Lastly, I want to address the nothing will change mentality of people that come to these meetings sometimes, like we've tried it before, and why would you ever try it? You've already been trying it. I think some of the ORC stuff is a really good example of if you do keep bringing up something that you find important and keep pushing, we can talk about how changes can happen, and even people that you might disagree with on other issues, you'll agree with them on some topics that are happening in town. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Cassie.
And one more.
Yes.
Diana Vians?
Thank you so much, Diana Vians Precinct. Here, I'll turn my volume back up. So as to the last caller, just FYI, 3 is decided here, but the caller is welcome to volunteer their own home and precinct for future consideration. Similarly, thank you to Mr. Tassinari. I think that you started off with an apology to the town, and I too am sorry that the councilors confused about the level to which our citizens are informed on this issue, as well as our rights under Article 5 to enact our recall provision. And in fact, the conflict at interest meets the very definition under Chapter 268A, which we'll make available so that everyone has it, but as does the ballot here. I think a lot of folks that are involved in this effort, including folks that really campaigned for this individual, myself included, have been very disappointed, and as a result of not just the conflict, but the treatment of people who were in the room today. I'll just say that these are many of those honored citizens of our community, and it's just been very upsetting to see them being treated this way by this individual. As to the downplaying of that, I just want to apologize to those people who have been treated unfairly by this person.
If we could just move on, Diana, to if you have something else, another topic.
Well, I am proud of what we've accomplished so far. And as for the tree on Bowden Street, I have received word from the town manager that progress is being made there. So I appreciate that, and I also appreciate the statement that was put out by the town today about this new ordinance. I think that is important information for the town to understand how our public shade trees are managed by the town. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yeah, Bill Schmidt, Precinct 5. I just want to clarify one thing that was said. I read the statement from the Attorney General's office, and she basically said that anyone who's making any town that hasn't complied yet, making a good faith effort to comply, will be extended through the end of December. However, any community that's not making an effort to comply could be dealt with sooner.
Thank you. All right, public relations, nomination papers for local elections. The election is November 4th, 2025. They're available at the clerk's office. Farmers Market every Sunday, June through September 9th, through September, 9 to 1 p.m. at Ingleside Park. Next council meeting will be August 12th. And again, just to repeat, this Saturday at DPW building, we will, from 9 to 2 in the morning, there'll be electronic recycling, and also in the afternoon, there'll be hazardous house waste collection. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Tanzanari. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Hey, I'll show you something.
Thanks, Steve.